The fluorescent lights above my hospital bed pulsed in rhythm with my headache. I could hear my mother's voice in the hallway, the same shivery sweet tone she always used when lying. Boys will be boys, you know how brothers are. But brothers don't usually strangle their siblings until they pass out. At least that's what I assumed. I'm Daniel Foster, 23, and this was the 4th time I'd woken up in the emergency room this year, courtesy of my older brother Alex, the golden child, the star athlete, the one who could do no wrong, even when his hands were literally around my throat. Danny, honey, Mom's voice cut through my thoughts as she entered the room. The doctor wants to do some tests, but we can refuse. Right, sweetie? You're fine, just a little raw housing gone too far. Alex lounged against the doorframe, all 6'2" of him, radiating casual indifference. At 27, he still lived at home, still played the role of the misunderstood son, and still used me as his personal punching bag whenever his life didn't go as planned. Today's trigger? I'd gotten promoted at the software company where I worked. Alex had just been passed over for promotion at his gym again. I barely touched him, Alex said, examining his knuckles. He's always been dramatic. The room spun as I tried to sit up. This time had been different. This time, there'd been real intent in his eyes as his hands tightened around my neck. This time, I'd seen death in his smile. Mrs. Foster. A new voice entered the room. I'm Dr. Shaw, head of neurology. We need to run an MRI immediately. That's really not necessary, my mother started, but Dr. Shaw was already reviewing my chart. 4 ER visits in 2 years, all with head trauma or loss of consciousness, he read aloud. Yet no formal investigations have been conducted. He looked up, his eyes sharp. That changes today. Our boys play rough sometimes. My father's voice joined the chorus as he entered the room. Danny knows his brother doesn't mean anything by it. Dr. Shaw's gaze swept over my family. Mr. Foster, raw housing doesn't typically result in strangulation marks or repeated concussions. The room fell silent. It was the first time anyone had used that word, strangulation. It hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. I want to speak with Daniel alone, Dr. Shaw announced. Hospital policy for suspected domestic violence cases. Domestic violence? My mother's voice rose. That's ridiculous. They're brothers. Exactly, Dr. Shaw replied. Which makes this domestic violence? Please wait outside. For the first time since I'd arrived, Alex's composure cracked. You can't make us leave. Security can and will remove you if necessary, Dr. Shaw said calmly, pressing a button on the wall. Daniel is a legal adult, and I'm his attending physician. As my family was ushered out, my mother's last words lingered. Remember who you are, Danny. Remember who we are. That was the problem. I remembered everything. Once the door closed, Dr. Shaw pulled up a chair. Daniel, I've reviewed your previous ER records. The pattern is clear, but all the incidents were logged as accidents or unexplained injuries. No one followed up. That stops now. My throat ached as I tried to speak. My parents, they'll never. Your parents don't have to admit anything, he interrupted gently. The evidence will speak for itself. He turned his tablet toward me, showing a series of CT scans. These are your previous scans. Each shows trauma consistent with assault, not accidents. I stared at the images, my brain marked by my brother's rage. The MRI will give us a clearer picture, Dr. Shaw continued. But Daniel, I need you to understand something. The next time your brother attacks you, you might not wake up. The words hit harder than Alex ever had. He's been getting worse, I whispered, speaking the truth for the first time. Today, when he had his hands around my throat, he wasn't going to stop. Dr. Shaw made notes in my chart. What triggered today's attack? I got promoted at work. And the time before this, I bought a new car. And before that, his girlfriend said I was the nice brother. Dr. Shaw looked up. He's escalating with your successes. This isn't about roughhousing. It's about control and elimination of perceived competition. A tear slid down my cheek. My parents will never believe that. They don't have to, you replied. The MRI will show us everything we need to know. And as your doctor, I'm mandated to report clear patterns of assault. For the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. What happens next? First, the MRI. Then you'll meet with our patient advocate and a detective who specializes in domestic violence cases. He paused. But Daniel, you need to be prepared. Your family will fight this every step of the way. I thought about Alex's hands around my throat, my mother's practiced excuses, my father's silent enabling. I thought about the next time, and the growing certainty that there wouldn't be another time after that. I'm ready, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. I don't want to die for their denial anymore. Dr. Shaw nodded, standing to prepare for the MRI. Remember, from this moment on, you're under the hospital's protection. Your family can't force you to leave or withdraw treatment. As they wheeled me toward the MRI room, I caught a glimpse of my family in the waiting area. Alex's face was dark with rage, my mother was crying, and my father stared straight ahead, already crafting their next story. But this time the MRI would tell the real story, and not even my family could silence that. The MRI results were devastating, not because they were bad, but because they were irrefutable. Dr. Shaw displayed the scans on a large monitor in his office, pointing out areas of repeated trauma. These darker regions show scarring from multiple injuries, he explained to Detective Rivera, who had arrived shortly after my scan. We can date them based on the healing patterns. The oldest visible damage is from approximately 2 years ago. That was when Alex lost his spot on the semi-pro football team, I said quietly. He said I was his good luck charm, and I jinxed him by missing the game. I was actually at a job interview. Detective Rivera made notes in her pad. And that was the first time he attacked you. The first time he put me in the hospital, I corrected. The smaller stuff started years before. Outside the office, I could hear my mother's voice rising in protest as hospital security prevented her from interrupting our meeting. Sarah, the patient advocate, sat beside me, her presence steady and reassuring. The pattern is clear, Dr. Shaw continued. Each injury corresponds with a significant event in Daniel's life that overshadowed his brother. Career advancements, personal achievements, social successes, each followed by an escalating violent response. Detective Rivera nodded grimly. Classic perpetrator behavior. The goal is to diminish the victim's achievements through fear and physical dominance. My parents kept saying he'd grow out of it, I admitted. That once he found his path, he'd settle down. Instead, he's escalating, Sarah pointed out. Today's attack was potentially lethal. The bruises around my neck had darkened to a deep purple, telling their own story. Dr. Shaw had photographed them for evidence, along with the older injuries that hadn't fully healed. We're filing charges, Detective Rivera announced. The medical evidence alone is enough, but your testimony will be crucial. My hands started shaking. My family will deny everything. They already are, Sarah confirmed. Your mother is currently trying to file a complaint against Dr. Shaw for unauthorized testing and false accusations. Dr. Shaw seemed unfazed. The hospital administration is fully supporting our actions. This isn't the first time we've dealt with families trying to cover up domestic violence. A knock at the door interrupted us. A nurse entered with a tablet, showing Dr. Shaw something that made his expression darken. What is it? I asked. Your brother was just caught trying to access your medical records through a friend who works in administration. He's been removed from the premises and his friend has been suspended. My throat tightened. Alex was trying to destroy the evidence, just like he tried to destroy me. This actually helps our case, Detective Rivera said. It shows consciousness of guilt and attempted tampering with medical records. The next few hours passed in a blur of statements and photographs. I described every incident I could remember, watching Sarah and Detective Rivera exchange glances as the pattern of escalation became clear. Where will you go after discharge? Sarah asked. You can't return home. I have an apartment, I replied. I never told my family where it is. I've been pretending to still live at home while saving money to move across the country. Detective Rivera looked up sharply. Smart. When were you planning to leave? Next month. I got a job offer in Seattle. I hadn't told anyone about that yet. It was supposed to be my escape plan. We need to move up that timeline, Dr. Shaw said. Once the charges are filed, your brother's behavior will likely escalate further. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a message from Alex. Hope you enjoy being an only child because you're dead to this family. I showed them the message. That's a threat, Detective Rivera said, photographing my phone. We'll add it to the charges. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the office window, I could see my father arguing with security while my mother sobbed dramatically. I'll handle them, Detective Rivera said, standing. Sarah will help you with the restraining order paperwork. As she left, Dr. Shaw turned to me. Daniel, what you're doing takes extraordinary courage. Many victims never find the strength to break free. I don't feel strong, I admitted. I feel terrified. That's because you're smart, Sarah said. Fear keeps us alive, but it shouldn't keep us captive. My phone buzzed again. A message from my mother. How could you do this to your brother? To your family? We gave you everything. Everything except safety. Everything except peace. Everything except the right to live without fear. I blocked their numbers, ready to start the restraining order paperwork. Sarah asked gently. I looked at the MRI scans still displayed on the monitor, the scientific proof of years of abuse, the evidence my family couldn't explain away or deny. Yes, I said. I'm ready to live. Outside, I could hear Detective Rivera reading my brother his rights. My mother's wails echoed through the hallway. My father's angry voice demanded a lawyer. But for the first time, their voices didn't make me shrink. The MRI had told my truth, and now I was free to write my own ending. 3 months later, I stood in my Seattle apartment, unpacking the last of my boxes. The rain tapped against the windows, a soothing rhythm so different from the tense silence of my family home. My phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Shaw checking in, as he did every few weeks. Court date next week, you ready? The preliminary hearing had gone exactly as expected. Alex had pleaded not guilty, while my parents painted a picture of brotherly rawhousing gone wrong. But the MRI scans told a different story, one that not even the expensive lawyer they hired could explain away. Ready as I'll ever be, I texted back. My new life in Seattle had become my sanctuary. My tech company had been surprisingly supportive, expediting my transfer when I explained the situation. My team leader, Marcus, had even helped me find an apartment in a secure building with surveillance cameras. Your safety is non-negotiable, he'd said. We protect our own here. The concept of protection without conditions was still foreign to me. Back home, protection meant silence. Here, it meant security systems, witnesses, and people who believed me. A knock at my door made me freeze until I heard Sarah's voice. She'd flown in to help prepare for the trial, another kind of protection I was learning to accept. Brought dinner, she called through the door, waiting for me to check the peephole before opening it, a habit she'd helped me develop. Over Thai food, we reviewed my testimony. Remember, she said, you're not just telling your story for yourself. You're telling it for everyone else trapped in family violence. My phone buzzed again. This time, a message from my mother through her lawyer. It's not too late to drop the charges. We can still be a family. Sarah saw my expression. They're getting desperate. They should be, I replied, showing her the security footage Detective Rivera had sent earlier. It showed Alex trying to break into my old apartment back home, not knowing I'd already moved. The prosecutors adding attempted breaking and entering to the charges. How does it feel? Sarah asked, seeing him face consequences for the first time. I considered the question. Terrifying. Liberating. Sad. I pushed my food around. Sometimes I miss them, the family I thought we were. Then I remembered that family was never real. That's normal, she assured me. You're mourning the family you deserved, not the one you had. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Dr. Shaw flew in to testify, bringing updated scans showing how my brain was finally healing without constant new trauma. Detective Rivera presented a timeline of escalation, including Alex's recent attempts to find me. When it was my turn to testify, I saw my family in the courtroom for the first time in months. My mother's face was tight with barely contained fury. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. Alex sat between them, his expression blank until I began describing the last attack. He said successful people don't need to breathe. I testified, watching the jury's reaction, that he was doing me a favor, teaching me my place. Alex's mask slipped, just for a moment, but the jury saw it. They saw everything. The verdict came 3 days later, guilty on all counts. The judge's sentence included jail time, mandatory psychiatric treatment, and a permanent restraining order. The court recognizes this as a pattern of escalating violence that, left unchecked, could have resulted in death, the judge declared. Family bonds do not excuse attempted murder. My mother's wail echoed through the courtroom. My father finally met my gaze, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Not for me, but of what Alex might have become under their protection. Outside the courthouse, Dr. Shaw and Sarah stood with me in the Seattle rain. "What now?" Sarah asked. I looked at the court order in my hands, the official document declaring my right to safety. Now I live. That evening, I hosted a small dinner in my new apartment. My Seattle team leader Marcus came, along with Dr. Shaw, Sarah, and Detective Rivera. They'd become my chosen family, one built on protection rather than possession. To freedom, Dr. Shaw toasted. To truth, Detective Rivera added. To the MRI, I said, managing a smile. The only witness they couldn't silence. Later, alone in my apartment, I opened my laptop and began typing. Dear future self, today I chose life over family loyalty. Today I chose truth over comfortable lies. Today I chose to break the cycle. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. My father? I'm sorry we failed you. Both of you. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something close to acknowledgement. I saved the message but didn't respond. Some bridges need to stay burned to light the way forward. Outside, the Seattle rain continued its gentle rhythm, washing away the old and nourishing the new. In my hands, the court order represented more than legal protection. It was permission to live, to thrive, to become someone my past self couldn't imagine surviving to be. The MRI had shown my scars, but it had also shown my strength. Every healed injury was proof of survival. Now finally, I could focus on more than just surviving. I could focus on living.